As a pastor of a local church, and as one who goes on the streets weekly in St. Louis, Missouri, I have a passion, a burden, a love, and a fear at the same time for this great and this awesome and this weighty ministry of open-air preaching, of proclaiming the gospel in the open air on the streets of St. Louis, Missouri. Now, people ask me, well, Geoff, is your open-air preaching effective? Is it effective? Is it successful? Is it successful? And the thing that we have to ask is this: what do you mean? What do you mean when you ask, is the open-air preaching effective? What do you mean when you ask, is the open-air preaching successful? What do you mean by that? What are you intending by that? Because here's what they usually mean. Where are the visible results? What do you have to show for the work that you're doing on the street? How do you really know that what you're doing is successful? And I want to answer that question with a very simple reply. We have to understand what biblical success is. Biblical success is always defined by faithfulness to God in the calling that He has given to a man. Nowhere in the Bible is faithfulness determined by numbers. Never. Or even by visible results. Or else Jesus would be a massive failure. But effectiveness, success, is defined and determined by faithfulness and obedience to the Word of God. Now, with that said, is open-air preaching effective? I want to give this simple answer. Yes. Open-air preaching, when done biblically, is always effective. It's always effective. Because I am a servant of God. Any open-air preacher who is faithfully preaching Christ, the man is a servant of God with the Word of God in his hands. And he is preaching God's message and God's gospel about God's Son to the people who are walking by. Insofar as he is doing all of that, the open-air preaching is always effective. Here's why. He's taking everyone who hears him to the cross. Because he's preached the cross. And he leaves all of the results to God. That's the way it should be. We preach Christ crucified. How shall they hear? Without a preacher. We are there to preach Christ and Him crucified. So, is open-air preaching effective? Well, if by that question you're asking how many numbers do I have to show for it, we shouldn't even answer that, because Jeremiah would have been a failure. Ezekiel would have been a failure. Jesus would have been a failure. Peter and Paul would have been failures. But open-air preaching is always effective. It's always successful when the man of God faithfully discharges his duty by obeying God and having the Bible in his hand and bringing all of his hearers to the cross when he preaches Christ and Him crucified and resurrected. And insofar as the man of God does that, all of the results are left to the sovereign work and the sovereign decree of God and the sovereign draw of the Spirit of God. And we glory in that. We have confidence in our God, who will bring all of His elect to salvation. And because of that, we know that we can stand up with confidence and with joy and with courage and with brokenness over the lost. And we know that faithful, biblical, open-air preaching, biblically, is always effective.